Hey guys, this is Echo Soundworks and you're checking out a Mix Essentials tip and trick tutorial video. And in this video, we are going to be covering headphone mixing and how you can get better headphone mixes that translate to your studio monitors and translate to more listening environments. So I wanted to discuss this because I get asked this question all the time because there's a bunch of arguments and just general discussion on the do's and don'ts of headphone mixing, as well as some people believe that you shouldn't ever mix on headphones, only edit and track on headphones. And then there are other people who've created hugely successful records and tracks and mixed on headphones. I know that one of Drake's biggest songs was mixed on headphones and laptop speakers. And I know that a lot of DJs will mix on headphones because they're traveling, they're on a plane, they don't have access to a studio and a studio monitor. So a lot of music is mixed on headphones, and it's not mixed solely on headphones, but that's what got a big portion of the mix there. So this video is to help you get better translation across all listening environments when you start mixing on headphones. For me personally, I mix quite a bit on headphones, and I'll start out usually in my apartment, and I'll start an idea, or it may not always be at the studio, and that will be on headphones. And I've grown really comfortable with 2 pairs of headphones. We're going to touch on why I think having 2 pairs of headphones is helpful. And then how to just, when you do get to a listening environment that has studio monitors, it's hopefully a little bit acoustically treated, if not all the way acoustically treated, how you can get better translation from your headphones mix to your monitor mix, your studio monitor mix, so you can get actually going when you sit down, start listening on monitors, and you don't have to redo everything that you did on the headphones. So first, let's discuss the reasons why you'd want to mix on headphones, and I think they're plentiful. First and foremost is ease of use, ease of location. You can mix on headphones, you can create on headphones anywhere. You don't have to worry about pissing off your neighbors, upsetting your roommate, your family, whatever the case may be. Now, you also don't have to deal with acoustic treatment. You don't have to make sure that you're sitting in the sweet spot of your speakers. You don't need bass traps when you're listening on headphones. You don't need acoustic absorption, diffusion. You don't need all of that. It eliminates those problems. You also get a very, intimate feel with your track because you're listening because the sound is right against your ear. So those are the 3 reasons why I think that headphone mixing is a positive. And then the 4th and final one is that I would argue at least 50% of all music is listened to via the headphone, whether it's earbuds, drays, whatever. So if your mix sounds good on headphones and monitors, it should sound good in the car stereo, laptop speaker, and most importantly, if a lot of music is listened to on headphones. Now, there are a lot of problems. For every positive situation that mixing on a headphone or in a headphone environment or system creates, it actually creates a little bit of a problem as well. Now, you're going to get really weak stereo imaging with headphones. You're also going to get a kind of a exaggerated frequency response for the most part because headphone drivers are going to boost highs or boost the lows, and you're not going to get a accurate flat frequency response. Then you also don't get the real world phenomena of music traveling through the ear or through the air to hit your ears. You're not going to have depth and spatial recognition of sounds in the mix. So it's this 2-headed beast where some elements of it are very beneficial to your end product, your end goal, and some of it creates problems as well. But for all the problems it creates, for the people who out there who don't believe in mixing on headphones, they only say you should mix and not mix, but you should edit and track on headphones. I would say that for all the people who has that argument, they're probably only mixing in really, really acoustically treated environments, and not all of us have that luxury. So for me personally, I sometimes or oftentimes start an idea at home, and I don't have monitors at home. I just have headphones. And then I'll take that idea to the studio when I want to finish it up. And it works fine for me, and I know it works fine for a lot of other people. So what do you want to be cognizant and aware of when you're trying to get a good headphone mix? The first thing you're going to want to be aware of is how loudly you're listening to the music. Now, this is probably what will make most headphone mixes sound like crap. We have a tendency to get really immersed in music when we listen to headphones and turn up the volume. And if listening fatigue can occur, it's a real thing, listening on studio monitors, imagine what happens to the ears when the drivers that are creating the sound are pushed right up against them. So first, listen and mix quietly when you're working with headphones. I actually would say, I'm going to turn the volume down, and here's a little mix right here. That's too loud for mixing on headphones, I would say. I would, the way I have the volume set. So if we have the volume set to you as a listener right now, I'm going to turn down all my instruments in the track. We'll pretend like I'm turning down the headphones, just so you can get the idea. So that was way too loud. You should be able to talk over it with the headphones playing. So let's turn this down. Let's turn this lead synth down a lot too. All right, so that is a more appropriate volume level in my opinion. For mixing with headphones. See how my voice is a lot louder than the music? Now, I turned down all my tracks because I couldn't just turn the volume down. You guys understand and hear that? So first thing, when you're mixing with headphones, make sure you're not mixing too loudly. You should be able to talk over it. You shouldn't have to take off an ear to hear any part of life. You should be able to, actually exist and not get lost in your own world. Now, the second thing you want to be really aware of when you're starting a mix on headphones is equalization. I would suggest not doing much EQing at all, save for taking out the lows and the sub frequencies, because most headphones, unless you have really expensive headphones, they're going to boost certain frequencies and they're going to be dishonest. So especially if you're mixing on Beats or any more of the commercial oriented headphones, just be aware and even check out, if you can, look up the frequency response chart for those headphones and see what frequencies they tend to boost. So if we go through these sounds here, you can see on this Serum patch, this synth, I haven't added any EQ. It's just a cut to make it fit with the bass a little bit. The sub bass, there's just a little bit of multi-band compression going on, but again, it's mainly reductive. I'm mainly reducing some frequencies here. See, just cutting out a little bit of that so it fits with the kick. The piano, same thing. This is just a really basic piano because I'm scratch tracking. I took out most of the lows. I boosted just a hair at 5K to add some air to it, but these aren't huge boosts. So stay away from doing a lot of your equalization until you can get to studio monitors or an environment where you're not just on headphones, because the headphones are going to boost certain frequencies. And once you know what frequencies your headphones boost, you're going to be able to even go into mixing on the headphones a little bit deeper, but you have to kind of learn the ebb and flow of those headphones. Now, the next thing you need to be very aware of when you're working with headphones is the lack of stereo imaging and spatial depth in the headphones. So I don't do a lot of pans when I'm working on headphones. I'll save that for when I get to the mix. I'll pan some stuff out. Like I pan these pianos out a little bit, just separate them from the left and right side. Now, speaking of this mix, this little production I just started, it has never seen monitors. It's only been on headphones for about 20 minutes. And another way you can make sure that you're not doing too much or too little to your stereo imaging, your depth there with the space, is you can use a multimeter that has a goniometer. So we can use, if we go to metering here, we'll go multimeter. And we can look at how much information we have in our stereo field there. So we can see that the bulk of this is coming from this synth. And because this synth is a stereo sound or a pseudo stereo sound coming from Serum, and it's in the middle right now, I know that I need to do some equalization to the basses to get that to fit, but I'm not doing a huge amount. So things I'll avoid, because things that play into space is reverb and delays and anything that kind of accentuates that three-dimensional element of a mix or a production, because you cannot hear that as clearly and cleanly as you can, or you cannot hear it as cleanly and clearly on headphones as you can on monitors. Now, that being said, something I want to touch on that not a lot of other places touch on, or blogs or articles about this whole debate, is that I would suggest having two pairs of headphones. Have your main headphones that you like mixing with that make sense to your ears. I think that price point is irrelevant. It just needs to make sense to you and your workflow and how you hear sound. That being said, I love having a closed back pair of studio monitors and an open back pair. So the closed back pair that I'm using, it's Audio-Technica. I'm literally taking off my headphones to look at this. It is the ATH M50X. And these are the ones I use for tracking in the studio as well, because I like how they isolate sound, and singers seem to enjoy them. But I have another pair that's actually open back. And what I do with that is I'll use that to check sounds and kind of check mixes when I'm actually working on a product. And it's an AKG, and I don't have them next to me, but I think they were like $99, $69. They might be even less than that now. And they're just an open back pair. What open back headphones allow for is they don't trap the sound in. They don't trap in frequencies that build up over your ear. They allow the sound to breathe out the back of them, so you can hear the stereo imaging, or the space, I shouldn't say stereo imaging, you can hear the space of your mix a little bit clearer with those. So having both of them, I think, are really, really good options. And if you have both, if you trust your ears, you learn how to go from your monitor environment back and kind of to and from your headphones to your monitor environment, there's no reason why you can't make good mixes on headphones. But I wanted to give you guys, because I've gotten this question a lot, I wanted to give you guys my little pitfalls that I try to avoid when I'm working and mixing on headphones, and just to be aware of. Not to say that you can't do EQ cuts, you can't do reverbs and delays, just be aware that it may not translate how you thought it did. So if you guys have any questions or comments, let me know down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm Echo Soundworks. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.